All right. Yep, that's expected. The computer was sitting there waiting for another button to be pushed. Apologize. You should have the email now. It did get put online, so if you have the link to that, you can grab it. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started here real quick. Minimize this. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Christopher with the National Service here in Slidell, and we're mainly, this is the weekly weather briefing, but we're mainly going to focus on tomorrow. Then I could talk a little about Saturday, mainly because it's Saturday and we do have festivals and other activities going on across the area. That looks like it's just maybe more of a wet event. There's still a lot of uncertainty with the Saturday one, but if the trends continue, it may just be, a little wet and cloudy and actually cool with most of the rain offshore because everything's been trending kind of south of that one. But we were worried about Saturday as well, but a lot of the focus is really going to be on tomorrow because it continues to get a little bit more impressive kind of with each run. Kind of been holding course today. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some further updates from SPC maybe a little bit later tonight. The main issue right now is we do have a slight risk for severe weather and slight risk for excessive rainfall. The slight risk for severe weather is over much of the area tomorrow. All modes of severe weather are possible. So when I mean modes of severe weather, I'm talking about damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes. And the tornado potential is especially higher with any of the storms out ahead of the main line. And of course, always if the line is broken, there could be segments in there that there'll be possible tornadoes. There is some uncertainty with timing still, as the line could be faster or slower. A lot really depends on if it's kind of a solid, like just real solid line all the way across, or if it's broken. And may have a better idea of that a little bit later tonight, and maybe during the overnight hours closer to midnight. We'll watch over eastern Texas, western Louisiana. If it is a solid line, what could happen is you may have heard us use the term cold pool. That usually causes it to speed or race out ahead. So if that is the case, it could approach the northwestern sections of our area of concern that we forecast for. So Wilkinson County and Point Capee parishes, West Feliciana parishes, those areas up there. Right now, current timing's maybe got that line approaching around sunrise. It could be an hour or two faster, especially if it's a solid line and it does cool pool out ahead. If it's a little bit more broken, it may be still a few hours, an hour or two away, possibly approaching like Wilkinson County and Point Capee, maybe around between 8 and 9. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot timing wise, but it definitely could be a difference for some people with respect to buses. But it could also be a difference with respect to how much heating we get out ahead of it. A faster line does mean a couple good things. I mean, it does increase the wind threat because it's likely a severe line, so we're looking at damaging winds with that. But if it's faster, the heavy rain threat would be a little bit lower, and then the risk for tornadoes would also go down. However, I do want to point, not that we are expecting this to happen, but April 27th, the same date, 2015, we did have a really nasty squall line move through here really early in the morning, and most of it was straight line winds. So even if it's just a squall line, it could still be every bit as bad. But a faster moving squall line does allow for a little bit less instability and a lower chance of tornadoes. Whether it's faster or not, we are still expecting scattered storms to develop ahead of it. The amount will depend on the speed of the system. So if it is a little bit slower, we do start to heat up across southeast Louisiana and coastal Mississippi. We may see, pretty good bit of scattered storms, and they will actually have the ability to rotate and produce tornadoes and become severe. So damaging winds and large hail would be possible with those. So that's something we're going to keep an eye out. So a slower line would definitely increase the tornado risk and increase the storms out ahead of the line risk. That also does worry me and us from a standpoint of the heavy rain threat, because a slower line means it's likely broken, and then there's a good chance it could kind of, I don't want to say hang up completely, but it would start to slow down until we really get the good forcing to really start pushing everything through. And if that does happen, that will drastically increase the flash flood threat. And honestly, there's been a couple runs of some of our models that it wants to continue to try to stall. Not necessarily the most reliable, but they are good. that they do stall this line a little bit or slow it down over coastal Mississippi and even the South Shore. So areas that cannot drain very well, that would definitely be a problem. So it's something we're going to have to watch closely tomorrow. Which I mentioned in the last bullet there. The heavy rain threat, we're looking at widespread. So whether or not it's fast or slow, we're still looking at widespread 1 to 3 inches with locally higher amounts, possibly much higher. Again, depends on the storm. So a faster line, you can kind of lean towards those lower inches. A slower line with a lot of scattered storms out ahead of it, more broken, probably lean towards the higher. And when I say possibly much higher, I mean not everywhere, but there will be some areas that you could see training with a slower system that you may see 5, 6, isolated 7 inches in the wrong, if it's in the wrong location. It's just, again, this is something that we're going to have to watch. A lot of times it just depends on how strong the squall line is moving through East Texas and Western Louisiana overnight tonight. This is the severe weather risk from SPC. As you can see, they do have that marginal up in Southwest Mississippi and the extreme northern portions of West Louisiana and Point Capee parishes. I personally, you're in the slight. That's how we're treating it, and it wouldn't surprise me if they include all of our area in the slight risk. A lot will be on timing, because they'll make their new day 1 forecast at around 1 o'clock in the morning. So they'll have obviously current radar and the system going on to look at. Not that I necessarily completely anticipate. It would not shock us. It would not be a surprise to see a enhanced risk for some area. It may not be necessarily in our area. Again, because it depends on timing. It may be more in the Mobiles area. I do think that there is the possibility that they could upgrade to an enhanced risk across somewhere. Right now, I think our greatest concern would be maybe coastal Mississippi, possibly portions of the North-South Shore, and maybe even more so further east towards Mobile's area that would have that greater risk. But just don't be surprised if that does get upgraded. However, if that does occur, the biggest issue again for that would be the scattered storms out ahead. It would be the reason for the increase to an enhanced. So that's what we're going to have to watch. Everything could begin pretty wide range time-wise, but looks like everything should hopefully be over by early mid-afternoon. But it could start as early as 5 a.m. That would mainly be if we started getting some storms to develop again out ahead. We're expecting them, and that's what starts the earlier time frame. Going to our next slide, which is that kind of timing graphic, you can see we do have the 3 separate areas. We circle that area for the scattered storms developing earlier in the morning. Again, a lot of that is really dependent on the speed of our line. A slower line, I think, does increase that risk, and that is something we're going to have to watch. But you can see Area 1, which does include the Baton Rouge metro area, and of course those parishes and counties I mentioned earlier, Wilkinson, Point Capee, West Feliciana. So everybody pretty much west of I-55. You're looking at like 5 to 9 a.m. You go into Livingston Parish, so you got like Macomb now, Hammond, down to Houma, and even the western portions of New Orleans metro. Maybe with the line, this timing is really, again, the timing is more for the line and not necessarily scattered storms ahead of it. We're looking at 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then over towards coastal Mississippi mainly, and then the extreme portions of southeast Louisiana, you're looking at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you look at radar, or if you're up at 6 o'clock and you see a solid line and it's right on our border, I would definitely lean towards those faster time frames. If you look up and you see, more convection and more storms kind of over southeast Texas and more of a broken line across western central Louisiana, I would start leaning more towards the later time frame. And then the scattered storms out ahead of it, they could begin as early as 5 a.m. and they will continue to probably develop and then move off to the northeast or northeast until the line finally moves through. The excessive rainfall outlook, obviously you can see right here that we do have a good chunk of our area that's in the slight risk, and it's mainly for coastal Mississippi and then kind of areas that surround Lake Pontchartrain. So you're like New Orleans, Slidell, maybe even as far west as Hammond, but definitely that coastal Mississippi area, and then obviously with the South Shore because of the drainage issues at times. Any slowing of the storms, any training of the storms would definitely cause this to become a bigger risk for a time frame here. Looking at the marginal risk for everywhere else, that's because we're not expecting as much of the convection or the storms to develop out ahead of the line in that area. And we're, right now the forecast has the line continuing to be progressive. As long as the line moves, the flash flood risk will be lower. But if it does slow down, that does increase the risk, and it probably increases it just about everywhere. Currently, right now, this is through Friday morning, even though most of the rain should be done by early mid-afternoon tomorrow. This is the storm total rainfall through Friday morning. As you can see, widespread 1 to 3 inches, and you see that they're trying to highlight that area of concern with that line possibly laying up along with where storms could train. I mean, because if you get, say, just theoretically, we have a storm on our map. We have one over Covington, one would be near LaPlace, the other one would be near Houma. Those storms are all right there. They're all going to move to the northeast, and it's going to follow this same area. So that storm could fall over Covington 2-3 times, separate storms. And that's why, given the track of the scattered storms ahead of it, and then if the line slows up, it will start to want to lay out more in a kind of east-northeast toward, like, so say north of Mobile and back to the west-southwest to north of Houma, that kind of orientation, where then you're just getting a lot of training and multiple storms to develop in those areas. So that's why they're really kind of focused on coastal Mississippi, so Gulfport area, Waveland, Biloxi, obviously, and of course into the New Orleans metro. Hopefully the line doesn't slow down. Hopefully it doesn't, lay up in that area, but there is that possibility. So just kind of be prepared for it. And it's a simulated radar. It's just one run. Please do not take this as gospel. Do not take this as, it's actually going to happen. It just kind of gives you an idea what we're looking at. And you can see what the storms are coming from the west, but you see all that storm activity out ahead of it. It's been developing. This was actually a run from earlier this morning. We do have a new run of this, which is a touch slower and does actually develop quite a bit more activity out ahead of it. It seems like a lot of the models are really started to kind of key in on maybe slightly slow, not slower, but overall, but it's about an hour or two slower getting into maybe the northwestern sections of our area, again, around that maybe 7, 8, between 8 and 9 time frame. So if that's the case, I do expect some pretty decent storm coverage out ahead of it, and those will be the ones we're watching out for. But you can see right here, it's a little bit more progressive, so we don't get that line to really kind of slow down or stall. And I don't want to say stall because it's not going to stall. It's just the orientation is going to change, and it will slow down at some point. So hopefully it will do that after it moves through our area. But if I could put on a couple other radar images, other images later or whatever, it would just make this kind of say the same thing, but just with a different time frame. And that's why I just wanted to kind of give you the idea of what we're looking at, the convection out ahead of it, and then the line coming in behind it. It's basically just the situation overview. It's just a copy of kind of what I said in the first slide here. We do have that slight risk over pretty much all the area tomorrow. Again, I'm not necessarily anticipating it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do put a small area of enhanced. I don't exactly know where. We would mostly probably be leaning on coastal Mississippi area, that area. If you look at the timing graphic where we circled, it could be somewhere in that area, and then more so into Mobile's area of concern. All modes of severe weather are possible with this system. Definitely even heavy rain is possible with this system. The time frame, could be around sunrise in our far northwest, but overall, we think everything should be done early mid-afternoon tomorrow. And then again, one of the two biggest concerns right now would be how much storm coverage we get out ahead of the line, because that does increase the tornado risk. And if it's a broken line, how much does it try to slow down, which would then increase the heavy rain threat. That is